As we start our Ask the Expert night, and I think maybe what we should do is, I think everyone should unmute, and then I think we'll give Neil, I'm just going on the screen here as I see Neil, Dustin, Wally, Andrea, maybe a couple minutes to each, maybe say 3-4 minutes to speak on some thoughts that they're having on that, what's happening in the condominium industry right now. And then from there, we'll open it to the floor to a discussion, and we can talk about stuff from the board level, stuff to grow our membership. We are a small group, but I think everyone that's on here, Sherry and Paul have attended a lot of sessions, and so kudos to them. They've been out many times, so would like welcome some input from them, and as well as Carl and Gary. I think I've seen you guys at presentations before. So we'll definitely be interested in hearing from you, but I think tonight will probably be pretty much a discussion period. So just to step back, the views and opinions that will be presented this evening are those of the panelists, if you will, and would be presented in such that they may not have all the information based on the specific issue, problem that you're asking them for advice on. So based on that understanding, we are all professionals in the industry, and we would like to behave that way and be treated that way. So we'll move forward in that. But I do, in preparing for the meeting today, I wanted to refresh myself on what the objectives that we have at CCI National. And so I'll just read off what the objectives that our national group has posted on the website. And it was, some of it was kind of refreshing to kind of come back to grassroots. And the first is to providing education through seminars, lectures, courses, conventions, and enhancing the development and understanding of the condominium. So I think that's the biggest thing, that's the most important, and what we really try to strive to do in Windsor Essex chapter. That our intention is to make sure that we can provide education to those in our community which we serve or we live. And unfortunately, we don't have any board members. At one time when we started, Andrea can attest to that, we did have board members on our board. So the next is to utilize existing and emergent technology to further advance and achieve our goals. Well, I think, by CCI National sponsoring the chapters and providing us with this Zoom, I think they've done that. And so, that's actually interesting note to add here, that CCI National is using those funds that we contribute to CCI National to purchase things like this Zoom account. So our chapter was looking at purchasing it, but it would have been at a cost of several $100s a year. We didn't have to. National purchased it for us, so that's good. The third is to publish newsletters, books, and periodicals to communicate condominium concerns and advertisements for industry professionals. The next item was communicating to the public concerning condominium matters. And so I think we get that again through the newsletters, the books, periodicals, and the resources that are available on the national website. Represent condominium interest on all levels of government. So this is an important one, I think, and something that I would like just to bring to everyone's attention, that CCI National has just sent out a spreadsheet to Anita and myself, and I've shared that with a number of managers. I've shared it to Anita and Neil, Cheryl, Bill. I've shared it with Jean-Marc Smith. Sorry, not Jean-Marc Smith. Sorry, Mark Smith. I've shared it with a number of people, and what they're asking for is feedback on what the condominium policies are looking like for insurance, because the industry, as Wally will speak to later on tonight, condominiums are paying quite high premiums, and the deductibles are quite high. So in some situations, they're having to self-insure. So CCI is taking it upon themselves on behalf of the members across the country. They're taking some polls and they're collecting information. They're going to go out to the members of government and insurance companies to kind of create a stakeholders group, and they're going to see what they can't do to help our members and our clients and our community members with their insurance premiums and deductibles. So that's something that's happening right now, and I think is a fantastic initiative. If you did receive the spreadsheet from me, I will be chasing you down, because I think it's really important that we support National in this event, because they're supporting us. So I'd like to have as much response as we can from our members and from our property managers to really help this initiative. Number 6 was to develop and maintain relationships locally, nationally, and internationally for the benefit of the entire group involved in the condominium. So I think this is also very key. Promoting integrity and professionalism through the condominium industry, and I think it's pretty clear that CCI has been doing that. If any of you attended, we were invited through Sonia Hodas, who is the chapter president for in the Barrie area. She invited us when the COVID really hit us, and she invited us to a number of seminars, and several of our board members actually spoke. I know Bill has spoken, Luis has spoken, Andrea, I believe you spoke as well. So, that would really shows that, communication amongst our groups. We've been invited to other presentations as well. And since the whole Zoom community has opened for CCI, there's been opportunities that have opened for myself to attend sessions that other groups are putting on. And the last is to grant certificates and accreditation for the designation of the general public and the other practitioners within the community industry, and that certain professionals have maintained and established the standards of CCI. So I think that's very important in establishing, making sure that people that are involved in our industry have the tools that they need and are recognized for achieving those. And Andrea is one of those that has achieved a quite high distinction at CCI for her role in establishing our chapter, as well as her involvement at National. So that being said, I'd kind of like to open the floor, and I see I'm looking across the top of the screen, and Neil is the first one who's on the panel. So Neil, I'm going to turn the floor to you, if you can give us a couple minutes spiel, and then we'll move along to the next presenter, which is Julia, and then we'll move along to Wally, then Dustin and Andrea, and then we'll open the floor to discussion. And I think, well, we are a small group tonight. It kind of opens opportunities for us to, I think, to have more of a roundtable discussion than more of a panel discussion. So it's a good opportunity, I think. So let's enjoy ourselves. And when people are getting kind of exhausted, because we are a small group, we may be able to cover a lot of terrain in very little time. We can call it quits. So we don't have to stay on until 9 o'clock tonight, but I'll leave it up to you. I know Elizabeth has to leave a little bit early. So at any rate, I'll open the floor now to Neil. I'll mute myself. You got the floor, Neil.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name's Neil Bear. I'm with Arnsby Property Management. I'm the Windsor property manager for them, and I've been a property manager since 2014. I'm just going to touch on a little bit on AGMs and pre and post-COVID. As everybody likely knows already, the date of an AGM must be held within 6 months of the fiscal year end of the condo corporation. But when COVID shut down everything, AGMs are put on hold. The emergency order stopped on July 24th, 2020. Therefore, many corporations are scrambling to come up with their AGMs now. The government came out with standards that dictate when AGMs must be held. If your AGM was supposed to be scheduled during the emergency period, you have up to 90 days to schedule it. If your scheduled date was up to 30 days after the ending of the emergency order, you now have 120 days to schedule your AGM. If your AGM was supposed to be held after the 30-day period of July 24th, you have to hold your AGM within the normal time period. So that's within 6 months of your fiscal year end. Therefore, if your year end was September 17th to December 31st, 2019, you have until October 22nd, 2020 to hold an AGM. A January year end has until November 21st. A February year end must have the AGM done by, or should have had it done by, August 31st of this year. Any year ends in March or later must go by the proper 6-month time period after the fiscal year end. Electronic AGMs were being allowed under COVID and are still allowed up until November 21st, 2020, without having the appropriate electronic communication bylaw in place. This does not leave much time, and there are many limitations in how many people can come together, either outside or inside. The rule was 50 people inside with social distancing and 100 outside with social distancing. Now the government has changed things up again, and on last Saturday, lowered the gathering limits for events held on private property. So if an AGM is held in a party room at the condo building or outside on the condo grass, the number of people has been lowered to 10 people inside with social distancing and 25 outside. Now, if you're renting a banquet hall for your AGM, your limits are still 50 inside and 100 outside. Proper social distancing must be met and proper sanitizing and hand washing must be done. If you're having your AGM before November 21st, the use of the virtual meeting might be worthwhile so that it's not any issue with the spread of COVID. This is a difficult time for all, and I know that many people are scared and do not want to catch COVID-19. With the surge in cases, I'm sure that there are more changes that will be coming, and hopefully the government will bring in changes to electronic meetings to allow more of this without having the electronic communication bylaw. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Well, I'd like to welcome, we have someone joining us here from Galaxy Tab E. So I'd like to welcome that. Thank you, Neil, for that. So move along the screen. Julia, you're next. If I could ask Galaxy Tab E to mute yourself, just so we're not getting a background noise, and I will turn the table over to Julia.
Okay, thank you so much. And Neil, a great start, because I'm going to kind of kowtow on that. Some condos, if you had a December year-end, January or February year-end, your audit and your notice, your nonprofit return and your nil T2 return is technically, we're supposed to be due June 30th, July 31st, August 31st, but all of those deadlines got extended to September the 1st, and then the last week in August, the government then gave us another extension to the end of September. So a lot of audits have already been kind of worked on and finalized by now, but just if you're one of those condos and you have a December year end, usually you would have had your package in May or early June. Just remember that these are unprecedented times, and just with the property managers and the boards and the auditors, we all had to find our new way and still comply with government regulations and then the due dates. So then I think that was in my newsletter, but anyway, maybe just expand on that a little bit. Also, there are some people who are really scared of COVID, and now that Ontario has reduced their, like Neil was saying, the numbers, if there's no AGM or it's not, like, technically the auditors are supposed to note that, but we're just going to, next year, our office has decided to just basically, as long as there was an attempt for an AGM, we're not going to really highlight it too much, if at all, just because we're just, again, unprecedented times and safety is first. I spoke with the board this morning, and they were again talking about their AGM, and basically I said, you know what, you're the board, your responsibility is the corporation and keeping it safe. If it's the elevator, the driveways, the sidewalks, the common elements, and I guess you can put people safety, right? Like the elevators keep people safe, stairways, and anyway, no one wants COVID. So anyway, that's about it. Thanks.
You're on mute, Troy. We saw your lips moving, but we...
Thanks. Wally, you want to chime in now?
Yes, guys, thanks for inviting me to your group here. Excited to see what how this goes and offered my advice and expertise. So the insurance is kind of top of mind lately. Obviously, some condos are probably experiencing some markets that are hardening. Nothing's really changed from the COVID year to last year. Markets are still hardened. There's been not a lot of relief. You know, there's not a lot of new markets getting into the condo space. So, you know, if you're looking at mitigating expenses and keeping everything in line, it's time. You just have a transparent conversations with your brokers. 129, I would say 120 to 90 days advance of your renewal, especially if there's claims activities, because claims are just markets are dropping, you know, getting out. So if you have a condo that's experiencing some bad claims history, which would mean like 4, 5 claims and say you know, 5-year window, you're probably at risk of maybe your insurer getting off risk. You know, there's a lot of knee-jerk going on right now in the industry. So it's just be cognizant of the time. Don't wait till the last minute. Everybody has usually, you know, 1 month window before they have to present to the board. So that's even more pressure to be that far ahead of the timing. So open, transparent conversation with your broker. Ask them how the markets are going to look at the renewal. You know, hopefully they can give an opinion 90 days before the renewal. There should be some sort of consistency there. You should be able to get the answers you're looking for. And if you don't like the information you're getting, you can develop a remarketing plan with your broker. There's some programs out there. Now, if you don't fit within some of the programs that are out there, the regular markets, then if you're one of those condos with, you know, bad claims history, you know, if you're going into the open market, like the Lloyd's markets of that nature, you know, if you're looking at, you know, premiums of 2-3 years ago of whatever you're paying then with 4 or 5 claims, you're probably, you know, 4 to 5 times the annual premiums that you were looking at, you know, a couple of years ago. That's kind of the marketplace right now. So just be aware of it. You know, deductibles are going up, so you're going to have to be managing some of those smaller losses. So, you know, with the property managers, you know, having the equipment and the expertise on hand to maybe handle some small water losses. These things are coming forward, you know, not to put so much pressure on insurance, especially when the deductibles are $25,000 and $50,000 anymore. And that's typically some of your small water losses fall under that. So having a plan to mitigate those losses cost effectively, you know, that's important. And basically, you know, buildings are getting older. It's investing in the infrastructure, you know, and anytime you do any investment in your building, make sure you tell your broker of those physical enhancements. That way they can update their applications to the insurer, hopefully get you better pricing. And if the insurer does go through your condos and they do come back with recommendations, try to get to those in a timely manner. You know, you don't want to have a few recommendations creeping into the renewal cycle, because then there'd just be an excuse for, you know, in a market to maybe look closer at the pricing and or get off risk. So those recommendations usually should be looked at really, really closely. Yeah, so we've had 4 or 5 years of some unprecedented costly insurance years in Canada with, you know, some of these water losses. So hard market. It's here. It's still not going anywhere, you know, until we can see some relief by maybe some new entrants getting into the market. Then we can see some pricing come down. But right now, this is kind of the normal. So, yeah, any questions from anybody?
So I think, Wally, we'll pass on to Dustin and let him speak, and then to Andrea, and then we'll open the floor. I think I got some questions for you already, so we'll get back to you.
Great.
All right, Dustin, floor is to you.
Okay, thank you. My name's Dustin Ducharme. I'm with WSP. Along with Troy, we're 2 of the engineers that are providing, or 2 of the folks providing engineering services in Windsor, Essex. I've been with the board, I think, since 2016. I'm on the education chair side. So if anybody at any point has an idea, or they've come across a good speaker, or they say, you know, it'd make an excellent topic, let myself, one of the board members, know. We're always looking for ideas. Wally, so I'm going to try to not talk about COVID because it's depressing. But anyway, Wally did mention towards the end about investing in your infrastructure. So I thought I'll kind of look at it in that sense. Pretend this is a normal year, and what are some things you can do as a corporation to get ready for a construction project? The big thing is you can start now. To go to an engineer, Troy, myself, whomever, and ask for a proposal for work planned in summer 2021. Now is a good time to start that process, particularly if there's a design and tender involved. Winter is a great time to get pricing from contractors. So what I tend to recommend is a board, start looking at your reserve fund, start talking. And if you have a project planned for summer 2021, now is a wonderful time to start it. Try to look at it holistically. We were involved in a project, not here, but it was in Toronto a couple years ago. The condo corporation spent a whole bunch of money replacing their roofing, and then the next year went in and replaced a bunch of rooftop units, and they had to rip up the roofing. If there was a way to kind of think about it, like look at it over the next 3 years, maybe at any point, and think about what are we doing over the next 3 years? Can we lump anything together? Do we need an engineer involved? What are the timelines? And those are the questions you can ask yourself now in October, November, and then kind of get the ball rolling for work next summer. To kind of give you an idea on timelines, a typical 8-week construction project, that could be balcony project, masonry, roofing, the overall schedule from beginning to end tends to be more than double that. So a rule of thumb is it takes 2 to 3 weeks for an engineer to produce a spec. The tender process is at least 2 weeks, if not a little bit longer. There's generally a week or two for the board to consider the price and then award the project. There's a couple of weeks for the contract, the CCDC, to get the project started. A couple of weeks to meet on site and get the contractor rolling. The actual 8-week construction, and then a week or so of project closeout. So for an 8-week project, you really need to kind of plan over about more than double that amount of time. So something to consider. And that's all I have to start off.
All right, Andrea, last but not least, I will turn the floor over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I love seeing everybody, even though I can't be with you. I have been having a very busy practice lately, and it is as a result of COVID. So I wanted to explain to you what I've been seeing and the suggestions that I would recommend. We're seeing a lot of questions with respect to timelines, issuing of notices for meetings, trying to comply. And we can't get all of this perfect. So I don't want anyone out there to think that either I or a property manager or anyone else can get this perfect. At this point in time, we just can't. But what we can do is our due diligence and show that we're trying. One of the things that I do recommend is that you check in with the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit to see if there's anything that you should or should not be doing. And that's just because you're dealing with a lot of people's lives and a lot of people's safety. And so that brings me to a question about opening up recreational facilities. Once we heard the Premier say that the reductions were going down from 50 to 10 unless there was supervised staff, I would take that very seriously. When we're talking supervised staff, we're not talking about having a janitor go in and clean up in between the facility at certain times of the day. We are talking about having somebody that is registering the individuals who are using the facility. We are talking about someone doing pre-screening, asking the questions of, have you been traveling? Do you have a fever? Do you have symptoms? Do you have a cough? All of those things that we have to ask. We are talking about making sure that physical distancing is still in place, which of course means that people are staying away and are masked. and that the actual equipment is being cleaned properly in between users. You cannot do that unless you have adequate staff. If you cannot supply or provide adequate staffing, then don't open up your recreational facility. The fine is the fines are steep, and they're a minimum proposed fine of $10,000, which it's for the organizer. So that means the condominium corporation. We have to be very careful here not to rush back into things. We don't have a vaccine. We are coming up on flu season. This is serious. The Premier's serious about it. And I just want everybody to recognize that this is a pandemic, and we don't have a solution just yet. And we really need to continue to do the good work that we're doing until we can get a vaccine. So let's not try to be in too much of a rush. You're not going to get all the business that you wanted to do done in exactly the way you wanted to do it, but you at least can introduce these concepts at either your virtual meeting or a hybrid meeting of sorts, or a proxy meeting, whatever you can do to try to get some things done. And like we heard from Julia, the accountant's not going to be hard on you. The lawyer's not going to be hard on you. The judge is not going to be hard on you if there's issues. Where you're going to get the most grief, I believe, is from owners, because they don't understand what's going on. They pay common fees and they want their rec facilities, et cetera, being open. So communication is going to be key. And I do recommend that when you're sending out notices to your owners, please indicate that there could be modifications. So the law is changing every day with COVID, and we have to continue to monitor it. So let them know that there may be modifications on meetings, on the date of the meeting, how the meeting is going to be held, where it's going to be held, all of that methodology. And then thank them for their kindness and for their patience. We want to preempt the issue of complaints. We want to welcome them into the community as it is now and as we are trying to deal with it. And I'm really interested in asking a lot of questions of our panel. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. President, for the question period.
All right, excellent. So I guess I'll open the floor to questions. If you wanted to use the chat bar, or if you just want to raise your hand or unmute and start talking, we have all those platforms available. So the floor is open.
May I, Mr. President, since I still have my phone or my microphone unmuted, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
And it's for our newest member, Walter. Walter, do you have any suggestions if the insurer, if you're on your renewal, and I know you've said give at least 120 days notice before your renewal comes up, but what if you get a denial letter before that time? Is there any hope of changing that response, or should the Condo Corp take a whole different route and try to proceed with other insurers?
Well, if you get a non-renewal, like usually an insurance company plans a non-renewal well in advance. They usually don't surprise a broker, within, a short time window of a non-renewal, unless there's been a change in underwriting information generally.
Mm-hmm.
But, typically, this is pre-planned. An insurer's going to tell a broker, for sure before 60 days that there's an issue. And at that point, the broker should have enough time to be nimble and get out there and find a solution. And at no time does an insurance broker want to have a condo sitting there with no insurance. So that's why it's so important to really have those open and transparent conversations with your broker at the 120-day mark to say, hey, if there's a problem with the condo with an insurer, like typically a broker is going to know what the threshold is of like the pain for an insurer if they're going to stay on risk. Like if it's price, it's typically there's going to be a claim or two. So 90-day mark, 120-day mark, you're going to have those conversations with the insurer. Say, we understand some claims activity. How is the pricing going to be affected? Changing deductibles, terms and conditions, and that way, if there is a non-renewal, they're going to tell you way early, and then you can go out and the broker can prepare with the property manager that the way the property manager can prepare the board. So nobody wants to be last minute and is the whole cycle. So because there's so many people involved along the way, that's the timing is key. If you wait till 30 days, 60 days, then you're asking for extensions, and then you're over the barrel with insurance companies. So you want to be way ahead of the game, and not look like you're in any sort of desperate need to find insurance, after the effective date or within a couple weeks of the effective date. It's just like anything, when you have time, there's no impulse buy.
So just a follow up on that, if I may, real quick. Would you be prepared to write a little blurb for the newsletter on that? Just what you said about the 120 days.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, that's the main thing is the timing. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could just give us a little snippet saying that, for insurance renewals, because it's such a big issue right now, and that is a terrific piece of advice.
And I'll be honest, in our industry, it's very busy right now. Because of the hardening of the market, these underwriters at the insurance companies are finding 2 to 3 times the normal volume that they used to be doing a year or two ago. So in the same thing with brokers like me, we're finding because of the pain that's out there, because we're trying to service our clients and show them all the options that are available, it's creating a lot more work. So. Which is fine, because if the industry, we get paid a commission. So if we're going to do the work, we might as well, be paid for it. But at the same time, we want to exhaust it, make sure the client's getting the best value. So some brokers, because of the timing, I'm not going to say they're busy, but sometimes they need a little poke in the side. If it happens to be the client's making the broker work, that's good. Keeps everybody honest. So.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start working on a renewal, if you find your brokers asking you questions around the renewal or sitting down with you on your loss run 30 days before the renewal, I would say you're probably expecting to have an uncomfortable renewal.
Wally, can I jump in with that one? I think I'm open, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Paul and Sherry have a question. If it's related to the same topic, I'll let you go. But you got 2 minutes, Bill. We can come back to it later. But Sherry and Paul have a question. So when you're done, we'll go.
You said it was going to be a wide open, so I was just letting her rip. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was thinking as you were speaking, Wally, that the reality of property managers we're not thinking about renewals until we get it. And sometimes we don't get the renewal till 3 weeks before, and then you look at it and go, they're asking for 45%. What are we going to do now? We don't usually think about insurance that far off. So when I heard Andrea say, hey, could you maybe write something that could be included in a newsletter that sort of might be able to tweak us managers, because we're as busy as everybody else, and we don't think about insurance until all of a sudden a renewal comes, and then you're up against the wall as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find is effective for me with my property managers, when it comes down to doing a proposal or sending them my proposal, what I'll do is we call it a quote disclosure page or a quote disclosure report. And in that report, it has all the commentary, the opinions of the insurance underwriter, what they quoted it, why they didn't quote it, if they quoted it, the commissions, everything that's fully transparent. That way you can sit down with board and show them that the work has been done. Documents like that take a lot of pressure off. If you're going in with a 30 or 40% increase, and then you can show them, here's the marketplace on this page, and here's all the 10 top markets that write condos, and this is the commentary that the specific underwriters are telling you. When you can sit in front of the board and show them that, that work and that transparency, it takes a lot of pressure off the increase when there's only one company and there's no other alternatives, right? So I think by showing the work and showing, unfortunately the market is not great, but at the end of the day, all you got is your reputation as a property manager and an insurance broker, but we don't set the rates, but we can definitely set the process in the service.
Okay. Paul and Sherry, you chime in when you're ready.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Very good. Questions, ECC 21, things that have come up in the past year or two all seem to have to do with we need to revive our bylaws and work on our bylaws. So first thing I thought, as soon as COVID was over, we should go to electronic meetings and get that bylaw done. And I asked management, isn't everybody doing that? And the answer was no. So then I hear maybe the government is looking at extending or changing that so that we don't all have to change our bylaws. Anybody have news on that? But also, if we look at our standard unit, can we get our insurance down? And a few other issues we're having is with directors and all that. So somebody help me out. Let's start with bylaws in general. Who's changing them? How do you start?
All right, excellent. I think it's probably, we'll refer this question to Andrea.
Sure. So the revision to the bylaw that revision is fairly simple. And the good news is if you haven't had your AGM yet or a meeting yet, you could still do it. You, right now you are covered up until, as Neil had rightly said in his presentation, you are covered up until November 21st of 2020 to hold a meeting electronically, and you could put the bylaw in that way. And get that done. My recommendation, short and simple, is to do it. It's important to do it. I don't know if the government will extend it. As of right now, they are only keeping that electronic voting and virtual meeting provision in until November 21st, 2020. So if you're having a meeting scheduled before then, I would try to, if it's still possible, to get some language in there for a bylaw amendment to that effect. I do think that's important.
Sherry, is that, I see you're muted.
And thank you. I was trying to be quiet here while I listened. Yeah, we're already past the agenda point. We didn't get it in time. Our meeting is October 7th, but
Have you
I
sent
would like to, sorry?
What, did you send out your meeting package and all of that for your notice?
Absolutely.
And it's not addressed in there, I take it then.
That's correct.
Okay.
Just Paul and Sherry, I know I've attended some meetings with clients, condominium clients, as well as, rental building clients, and we've done Zoom meetings. We've also done FaceTime calls, which has been really helpful. I did try to have an in-person meeting with one property manager and a board, and all the entire board, with the exception of one member, was comfortable. We sat outside. We all choose to stand, and we were equally spaced apart. Most of us wore masks, but there were only 6 of us, so it was pretty good. But one member was pretty uncomfortable with the situation, and he chose not to attend. So when you're dealing with a small board and a property manager, this was for a construction project. And at any rate, we did have a good meeting, but a lot of distractions. And as we move into the winter, I don't know that we'll be able to do that again. We might have to stand in the parking garage equally spaced apart. So, okay. Anything else related to this? No? I had a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wondered about changing our standard unit to help with insurance. If we're looking at changing bylaws and we're going to go through the process, I understand if we took off some of the things off our standard unit, that could help with insurance. Does it make much difference?
Well, for me, it would just be the replacement cost of the building. So, it depends if the unit owners insuring some of it on their own personal policy or how much of that we're carving out to the corporation. With respect to your commercial insurance policy for the corporation, there's only a couple of things that generally charge premium. It's the building, it's the D&O limit and the GL limit generally, and a little bit of crime. that generate premium. So if you have a $100 million condo and you decide to change the definition of your bylaws, and you make the definition of the unit broader, picking up some of the physical assets of the corporation, then we can carve out maybe some of the building coverage. You know what I mean? But I would have to get that direction from the board with respect to how much they want to insure the building for. Obviously, the insurance companies go through and they do their own evaluations of the buildings, depending on the material, the construction material. But generally they're all around $150, $200 a square foot, $225 a square foot. Maybe some of the engineers on the line might be able to give more of a concrete assessment to how much these buildings are actually valued at, without getting a full blown appraisal. But those things are come in handy with respect to premium. If you're obviously, the higher the number, the more money you're going to pay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. So I guess I have a question, because I do have one corporation that heavily invested in some on-site security equipment recently. They had, I think, pretty limited security equipment, and they've heavily invested now in DVRs and cameras and things. I'm just wondering, maybe from some of the property managers as well as Wally, Neil, are you finding that is helping reduce premiums? Neil? Oh, you gotta unmute.
The companies that I have pretty much all have a decent camera system in from before I even took them over. So I don't really think that's going to help out a whole lot. Back when I was in the insurance business, what the companies were looking at was alarm systems and all that kind of stuff, not camera systems. But I'll divert over to Wally for that one.
Yeah, and so if the cameras will reduce insurance costs, I don't know if anything will reduce insurance costs, but that was a joke. But with respect to cameras, those are the basics. That's the norm. They do want monitored systems as a minimum. A lot of these, I'm finding the insurance companies are getting even more crafty with respect to manuscript some new warranties in the property coverage with respect to having those alarms if you want to guarantee coverage, fire extinguishers, monitored fire alarms, things of that nature. But with respect to saving actual insurance dollars, the only way I can see a camera coming into effect is proof. With respect to a claim, if you get a slip and fall, cameras are very effective with mitigating damages. So when you're looking at subrogating losses at the end of the day and things of that nature, camera video as evidence is very, very, very strong. I've seen some claims get pulled because of camera evidence because somebody was just, fictitious slip and falls, and they didn't realize there was a camera over there. So cameras can actually not necessarily save you premium dollars today, but it's more an investment in the long term.
Okay, great, excellent. Okay, does anyone have anything to add to that, or more questions? Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, we've just went through a deep cleaning of our gyms, and our pool area was repainted. Our pool was repainted. Our numbers in our rec center have never been really big, and maybe this should go to Andrea. I'm wondering if there's a chance that this thing could be opened up, at maybe under the new rules, because it's been closed since March, and we went through. Like I said, we're getting ready to open up the pool. Yeah, it's because that's been all repainted and redone. So I'm wondering, if she has any input on it.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. So we have got direction from our premier, and he was pretty clear that he did not want anyone using these kinds of facilities unless there was staffed supervision. and all the protocols are being followed for COVID precautions. So if you have staff that is prepared to do all the things that are COVID required, which is pre-screening, registration, contact tracing, cleaning of the facilities before and after anyone uses them, making sure people stay physically distanced. If you have somebody doing all of that all of the time, then you can have up to 50 people in there because then it's staffed. But if you don't, you can only have 10 people doing that, or 10 people using your facility. And you have to really watch, like, who's going to be counting. So let's say you don't have it staffed. Who's going to count to make sure there's only 10 people? And who's going to, and all of these requirements are still subject to COVID compliance. So if you don't have COVID compliance, you're going to be at risk for the minimum fine of $10,000. And I don't know of a condo in this land that wants that $10,000 fine. So Gary, I'd be real careful. Do you have staff that is there 24/7 to monitor?
No.
Do you have staff that could be hired to monitor for certain limited hours?
That's debatable.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Gary, so
Okay.
we're actually kind of seeing what we can adapt to. And there are other situations behind the scenes that are going on. So, sure, it's available as soon as possible, but depending on what the legalities are, that may push it back.
Yeah, so that's thank you, Cheryl, for that, because we have to watch. This is, again, Gary, an evolving thing. And so I believe that's what Cheryl's saying, is we got to watch this and see what the Premier's going to say. This order was in effect for a time-limited period. I believe it's a month. It'll be revisited, and we'll look at it again. So
because our numbers are quite low, like you were talking like 10 people and stuff like that. Our rec center, unfortunately, is not well used for the size of it.
Okay.
And we get very few people into it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so here's the other thing that I would do, Gary, is contact the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit and see what they want, what protocols they want you to put into place, given that you don't have a high usage of the rec facility. Because if you at least do your due diligence that way, I think that's helpful. But again, it's the organizer of these gatherings, so that's always going to be the condo. And we just never know, like, if a family's going to come in there and bring more than the 10 people and ruin your day. So it's unfortunate that we really have to have that supervision right now. But let's say, for instance, there was a COVID case and it started from the rec center. If we didn't have staff supervising to do the pre-screening and then the contact tracing, which is most important, we might have an outbreak in the community that we just can't follow, that we don't know where it's gone to. And that's the reason why the staffing, the supervision is so important. It's so that we can get names and phone numbers of people who use the facility. And the only way we can guarantee that we can do that is if we actually have somebody at the door taking down the name, taking down the phone number and the contact information, and doing those pre-screening questions, making sure they're masked where possible or staying 6 feet apart. So that's where that's sort of the weaker part of your link there, is to bring the rec facility back open. What you might want to do is again, start with calling the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, but also you could start with limited hours and see how that goes once you get your protocols in place, and see if you're having issues. Seeing, you might find that people are doing well and you staff it and it's being monitored properly so that you can do all those COVID requirements.
And what if we were to limit it just to the owners for now? No outside, like you can't bring your guests in and that, just the owners.
Well, that's any kind of limitation is good. So that is helpful, but it's not the full answer. You still will need to have somebody supervise. So that really, like, I wouldn't be able to feel comfortable. I wouldn't be able to feel comfortable advising you to open that facility up without you having some sort of supervised staff there, even with the more limited people, because when the Premier says unmonitored private gathering with a minimum or maximum rather of 10 people, he's saying that because he knows that if you're doing a backyard party, you know that there's only 10 people in that backyard, but you won't be able to know that if it's not staffed. So that's the concern.
Just to chime in, my aunt and uncle own a condominium in downtown Toronto, and I was visiting them on the weekend. And my uncle's in his 90s, and so he's a health freak, and he's been really missing the gym that they have in their suite or their condominium. So he's been since the board has now come up with a plan that you have to sign in at the security desk, and you have to make an appointment. You're only allowed so many appointments a week, and it has to be those that are associated with your family. They get 1 hour in the gym. So my aunt and my uncle themselves, they get 1 hour in the gym, and then the cleaning staff clean. So there's a 5-minute intervals between the hours, and you're allowed to sign up for certain hours at the concierge desk, which I know that, Gary, you don't have, but you know, so that's what's happening in their condo, but their pool is not open. So just to backtrack, I have another client that is a rental client, and they were able to open their pool because they had an outdoor pool, but they did implement a sign-in. They do have full-time staff, and they did receive some approvals from the local health authority. I don't know how they got that, but that is a building that has 300 units and is located across the street from you. So but they are limiting, you know, access to that public area. Different from a condo, of course, but I think, you know, from the public health perspective, it's the same. So, yeah. At any rate, okay. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a good question. Great responses. Anyone else that want to add anything else to that? Because I'm sure property managers, and we've got 4 of them or 3 of them here with us, I'm sure they're hearing these kinds of things too. When can I have a tea party in the party room? Yeah, Bill, you're up. You got the floor, Bill. You got to unmute though.
Well, this has been super interesting and super good, and we do have a bunch of property managers here, and I think I've made myself a little bit famous for being one of those people who don't always agree with the rules and live by the rules. But having said that, I want to point my comments to AGMs, because in particular there are some specific rules that were already talked about with regards to AGMs and the requirements to have them. Well, I have a number of corporations that I call my geriatric buildings, and they hold their AGMs in their lobbies, and everybody wants to go downstairs. They come downstairs in their walkers, in their wheelchairs, and they fill the lobby. Well, we can't do that. And I'm looking at the timing requirements, and I'm thinking, so my boards have said to me, what can we do? And I said, well, you can rent a facility. Well, where do you want to rent? So you contact the Legion, and they're not renting out their facility. You contact the church, they're not renting them out. So I just say to the board, you know what? You can't do it. I know the act, and I know the rules are that you have to have it. I'm saying to the board, you're supposed to have it. They're saying to me, we don't want it. I'm saying, okay, we're not going to have it. We're not going to have it until conditions change. If it's a year, if it's 6 months, it's definitely past the 120 days that we're allowed. And then I say to the board, okay, well, who the heck's going to come and really force you to have your AGM? In the city of Windsor, I would suggest to you all that there might be 1 or 2 corporations that have these 200, 300 unit buildings where you have these little groups that are fanatical and want to force things. But all they are, but other than that, you have to be reasonable. And for me, if I apply all the reasonableness I can, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until Mrs. Smith, who's 87 years old, has not missed an AGM in 20 years, so she can come. And if maybe we have to hold an 2 AGMs at once, I'm prepared to do that. So that's what I would say to y'all. And I would like to hear what Cheryl thinks about that. I know what Andrea has to say, so I don't even want to ask you.
I'm a rule follower. I'm sorry. But I understand your point, Bill. And I'll let Cheryl say a few words.
Oh, Cheryl, you're muted. There you are.
To a point, I'm on the bandwagon as a rule follower, and that is due to various historic situations that I've entertained that allows you education on certain things. But a lot of it does depend on the clientele of the corporation, so I can see why you're doing that, Bill, with various corporations that I have.
Nope.
Where did you have it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out a little bit.
I know, it's just my internet connection or something. So yeah, so it more depends to me on the clientele of the residents living in the building and also the legislation, I guess. But it depends on the attendance, the outcome, and the duration or the drive for the meeting. So if you're having various residents asking you when you're having this meeting, that kind of promotes what you're going to do. And that kind of is what the board is following.
Okay. Neil, what are you finding?
No, I only have a couple condos right now that have AGMs that need to be done. I have one that is got a lot of elderly people in it, and they really want to hold off. They're scared, and so we're going to do that right now. And the other one we're doing next week, and it's going to be electronic. So
I've done 3 electronics already.
I personally like the idea of electronics. You know, I've been in AGMs with a number of you, and I can remember one I think that was Andrea and myself in a party room, packed full in July. You know, everybody's sweating and miserable, and you know, lots of topics to discuss. A little bit hard to govern the floor at times. You know, we got the business done, but you know, something like this is this Zoom platform, I think, is pretty amazing, but it doesn't come cheap, and I know that from our experience trying to determine whether or not this was something that we could use for our local group. And thank God CCI National has come forward and purchased this, and we're able to sign it out on behalf of our organization. So excellent. Okay. Dustin, oh yeah, go ahead, Julia.
Okay, thanks, Troy. Just about that. Oh, I am also a rule follower. But Bill or any of the property managers or anyone here, if you're going to postpone your AGM past those deadlines, I would just document that you tried calling the church, you tried calling the Legion, and that they're not taking it. You know, and mark down the dates, and then I think we'll all kind of have these dates burned in our mind that the middle of September, the Premier reduced our numbers again, just so that we're all keeping our T's crossed and our I's dotted when it comes to any owners or, anyone who's upset with the AGM or postponing it. But Bill, like you said, I understand where you're coming from, and some people, don't have the capability of Zoom, and we're just gonna have to find our new way. That's about it. Just document.
With these desperate times, it could call for desperate measures. I think of those apartment buildings that have the intercom tied to everyone's channel in their on their TVs, and they're able to sit down in the lobby and put up signs and talk about things.
That could be a good idea. If you have that old intercom system, you never know, right?
Yeah. All right, Bruce, you've been pretty quiet. How are things from retirement perspective, but being a condominium owner?
Well, it's been interesting listening to us, and I always remind everybody, including the insurance people, that you have to go back to the Act. The Act is there. Remember, we're dealing with legislated living. So when it comes to trying to change the definition of unit, what's included in the unit, and those types of things, you've got the Act to deal with. The Act has put limitations on that. So you got remember the order of hierarchy, the Act, the declarations, the bylaws, the rules, and so on. So you got to go back to those. And so it's not just easy to change definitions and try to adapt insurance policies to do funny things and so on. It's sometimes the Act steps in the way and says, sorry, you can't do that.
Oh, how are you finding things at your condo? Are you feeling holed up, or are you getting out?
Well, I get out every day. I'm busy doing things, but it's been pretty quiet around here as far as AGMs and year ends and so on. And of course, up until recently, they were pretty limited on doing repairs and maintenance other than emergency work.
Right. Now, Dustin, maybe we can speak to Dustin, and that raises an interesting question because I know we've done some things in our office with clients. Dustin, what are your clients doing when it comes to repairs and maintenance?
So when this started in March, we pretty much shut down, is what the bulk of the condo clients that I deal with. We had 3 projects that coincidentally were all tendered in the winter, and 2 pavement projects, 1 roofing project that were all supposed to start April the 1st, April the 2nd, the first week of April. They all got shut down, and then it turned into an awkward balancing act because one of the pavement companies we were dealing with called us in May and said, we're full steam ahead, we're going. And we said, we can't go to site, and the client doesn't want you on site. And then we had other ones that had gone the other way, and they said, nope, we're not going back until the economy is fully open. So it was a bit of a balancing act. I'd say probably May and June when it got kind of gray until we got into phase, I can't even remember now, I guess it would be phase 1 until we got into phase 1. That was, it was hopefully a once in a lifetime thing we went through, but it was a bizarre logistical, but what I realized is different people looked at it very different ways. We were dealing with contractors that were calling me every other day saying, we want to start, we have a crew, these guys are screaming. And I just said to them, we can't. And then the clients were usually on the fence of, no, we don't want people on our site or on our property. It's since settled down significantly. We've had pre-tender meetings. We did a garage one a month ago or so. It was in London, and we had a socially distanced pre-tender meeting, which was a little bit awkward. We did video pre-tender meetings with most of the folks had iPhones, so we did a FaceTime pre-tender meeting, which was a little bit strange as well. So we've worked our way around it, but it's been different than anything I've had experience in the first 16 odd years that I've been doing this.
And you know, that's interesting. I see some parallels with the things that I was working on. We had a couple of roof projects that were to go out for tender about the time that things kind of went crazy in March, and we had clients that called us and said that we're deferring to next year. We'll deal with the leaks as they come up. We had other clients that said we have garage repairs. We don't care. Well, if contractors will work, we want them in. So we were able to safely separate the contractors from the building residents, as well as from management. And I know early on, you know, I was on site with these guys, and you know, PPE was difficult to get. Masks and gloves and things, even the surgical masks that we see now you can buy almost anywhere, were difficult to get. So contractors and laborers, you know, they wanted to work, but it's hard because in situations where the men had to work side by side, they're getting creative with, you know, masking and that kind of thing. I myself, we had jobs we had to staff. And so I was out on site with, you know, PPE that we had previously purchased, which of course is long run out. We did have some clients that said, you know what, if we can keep the contractors isolated and they're following the guidelines that are published by the various construction, I think there's the Canadian Contractors Association or something, produced some COVID guidelines. And so we've been using those. But we have had a mix of clients that have been comfortable and uncomfortable, and we've had situations that we've had to deal with on an emergency basis, and we've dealt with them. But it's been tricky to echo what Dustin is saying, and we've had to kind of get creative to how contractors access the site, and you know, they basically come in through the back of the building. They may use the staircase, and you know, we're asking them to wear masks and things. They're interesting too, because they've been doing things like social distancing. You know, if there are 2 or 3 men on the site, they're social distancing themselves. So the guys aren't working side by side. They're not sharing tools. They're, you know, basically showing up with 2 sets of tools and those kinds of things to keep those things going. So it's been a weird year, but we're finding that more and more, with particularly some contractors that are coming to do work from out of town. Because the men are staying together, they're basically acting as a family unit. And so those particular fellows are just functioning kind of like before all this happened. But they're staying in the same hotel rooms, they're staying in the same apartments when they come to Windsor, Essex, Leamington to work for us. So anyway, Gary, you had a question?
We're just coming off of the last couple of years of some monumental contracting, for lack of a better word, fiascos for 2 or 3 years, and it's just terrible coming out of it. We have some more major on the horizon, but now we're hitting this with this COVID. Now we can't have an AGM, and I know what you're saying about the AGM. I'm okay with the Zoom, but it lacks, I'm going to say for a better word, the flavor of an on-site meeting. And you know what I mean by that. You've probably been there when they get a little heated. Well, I got to tell you, this one could get very heated if it would be brought up.
Yeah.
But yeah, these people have went through, well, about 2, 3, 4 years. And it was one of the most major things that you can do to a condominium. And we went through it, and it was, I'm telling you, it leaves you on the rings, I'll tell you. And you know, we have a bigger one to come, so.
Yeah, and you guys have been through a couple of major projects. I know I was involved with one of them several years ago, with you guys, and but you know, the thing is, and I think Dustin can attest to this, and as well as some of the property managers, we have these aging properties, and you know, I use the term construction exhaustion. And I think you just kind of expressed that exact what I've been seeing over the years, and I know Neil has lived it. I know Cheryl and I have lived it on some properties. Bill and I have come to terms with it before. You know, I know Andrea and I have been to meetings about construction exhaustion before. But I think the big thing is communication. And you know, well, some people, you know, love the flavor of the animated AGMs and the and being able to voice their opinion. You know, fortunately, you know, when we look at what we're doing today, I'm disappointed with the turnout, particularly because we have so much expertise on the screen. You know, even yourself, Paul and Sherry, who I know well, Carl, I've met a few times. You know, we're having a great discussion. It's too bad that not everyone can benefit from this, because I think, you know, we've talked about some amazing things tonight, and you know, communication is key to success on any project, whether it's, you know, remodeling, opening the pool, walking through this COVID nonsense, you know, and so I think this Zoom, I think, could become a great tool, because everyone has had a chance to raise their hand and speak. And so, you know, if you have an AGM, I don't recall the exact number of members in your corporation, but let's say it's 300. So actually, this platform can handle that many people. So I think you could run a good AGM. We have, I mentioned Sonia Hodas earlier tonight, and most of us that are on the board have heard her speak and manage some significant meetings. And I think one of them, Bill, did she not have almost 400 people on the call? Yeah, it was awesome. Like, it was really good. She was putting up the voting questions and polling questions, and it was really, really a great session.
Yeah, that was nationwide, Troy. It was right across the whole nation, and at one point, I think there was close to 500 there.
Yeah, no, I think these platforms are good, and I also dread going to those those heavy meetings where you've got to talk. Dustin's probably been in them. I know most of the property managers have, when you got to talk about, you know, issues that are going to affect everybody, whether they're construction, whether they're COVID, whether they're, you know, failing infrastructure, those kinds of things. So we've all been in meetings where it's not necessarily comfortable, but, you know, it's what we do. Whether you're a member of a corporation, whether you're a board member or a professional in the industry, you know, you kind of got to be a little thick-skinned at times. Yeah, I don't know, Andrea, do you want to talk to some experiences about some
Not
meetings?
a little thick-skinned, a lot thick-skinned.
You're right.
Gary
You're
said
right.
it best.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary said it best. A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dustin, I don't know if you want to talk about construction exhaustion. I know many years ago, you and I, when we worked together, we were involved in a couple of big projects, and one building in particular, I think Neil knows well, downtown. We were involved, and they were doing a lot of things there, balconies and garage at the same time. Do you remember?
I do. Right on the water, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
that's the one.
I remember spraying a lot of phenolphthalein to check the pH of the carbonation in the concrete. But no, we had a reserve, like we've had ones where we've dealt with boards that have said to me, our reserve fund says that we're replacing the boilers next year. The year after, we're replacing our roof. The year after that, we're doing our membrane, our garage. And you can get the sense that they're setting themselves up for a very frustrating 3 years with both noise and inconvenience to the owners. So I'll always stress to them the reserve plan is a roadmap. It's not the only way to get from point A to point B. And if something's working and everybody's just done, they've had enough, they've gone through a summer of parking on side streets and dust and messy cars, and then the next year you're going to go right back at them and do phase 2, or you're going to replace the roof, or you're going to do balcony repairs, take some time off. There's value in having a break between the big projects, because it's when you're on this side of it, meaning you're the engineer and you're sitting at a desk somewhere and you're saying, oh, well, what's the big deal? You just go in and let's blast through a bunch of balcony slabs. But when you are the 300 or 200 owners in a building and you're living with it, it's a very different feeling. So I've always said, yes, the reserve fund says you're doing these 3 projects. You're not going to do those 3 projects in a row. You're going to do them. You're going to space them out a bit. But it's a real thing, and it can be absolutely horrendous when you get to the end of the summer and you've gone through 4 months of pounding hammers and you're just done with it. So no, I completely get it.
Okay. Anyone else? Paula, Sherry? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, just a quick question regarding code of conduct for board members, if anybody has passed a bylaw in regards to that, not just the signing the thing, but it actually put a bylaw in place.
Okay. Neil, do you want to speak to that?
Hey, I would just say call Andrea.
Oh, Neil, yeah, perfect. Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
I agree. Talk to Andrea on that one. I don't have any condos that currently have a bylaw on it.
So I actually do include it, and if I'm asked to do a revision to bylaw number 1, which is the general operating bylaw, I download the CCI Code of Ethics and I insert it into the director's qualifications, and it's right in the bylaw. And then the manager can thereafter have each director sign it and keep it in their director file. So I absolutely include it.
Have you seen a bylaw that has, I guess, consequences in it that the board can actually dismiss a member for failure to comply with the bylaw?
So I don't go that far. I think that's a great question. But the Act, like Bruce was saying, has procedures in place on how to remove a director. And so I don't put consequences in the bylaw. The consequences and the remedy is within the Condo Act itself. So there's only a few provisions that in the Condo Act and the regulations that automatically terminate a director. One example would be if they haven't completed their director's training within the required 6-month timeline. So that's one example. But I think it's an inappropriate methodology in a bylaw to actually put consequences to the Code of Ethics violation because the Act hasn't done that. So the remedy then would be to call and requisition an owners meeting and have that director removed by majority of the unit owners that you would explain that they were in breach of the Code of Ethics. So that's the remedy, but I think it's going beyond the authority of a bylaw to put consequences for not following a Code of Ethics.
Okay, yeah, because I'd read somewhere where some other, I think it was in one of the Toronto forums where they were discussing, bylaws that had they had a process in it, a fair process in order to deal with it, but it just wasn't. But for the boards that could use for things like not attending meetings and just that type of thing. But
yeah, and
thank you.
I have seen that. I don't know if it's enforceable for the reasons we mentioned earlier. Bruce had said too. I mean, it starts with the Condo Act, and so we could put bylaws in place, but if they go outside the authority given to us under the Condo Act, they're not going to be very enforceable. So I just, if you put it in your bylaw, just be prepared. It may not be enforceable. So I generally recommend not doing that and just staying, put what you want your qualifications are. The Act spells out the remedies, which is to call and hold an owner's meeting. And then you can explain at that meeting why the person should be removed from the board, which is because he didn't follow or she didn't follow the Code of Ethics.
Yeah. No, that's good. Unfortunately, COVID puts a whole twist on that.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Paul, Cherry, we do have a director's code of conduct, which is produced by CCI National that Andrea has referenced. And so, if you'd like to see a copy of that, we can send it to you. Us as directors of the local chapter, we do sign that. We've incorporated that, and I think it's a good reminder of why we volunteer our time and why we do what we do. I think we all have reasons. There's many people here that have been on the board and have been involved, and we all have different reasons. And I personally feel I've learned so much from my peers and the people that are involved with CCI, but I've also made a lot of industry contacts. And that's helped out both personally, professionally, and as well as, I've been able to help clients out because every once in a while you get approached by somebody and they'll say, hey, we have this problem. You know, you're on a job site doing something for them. What can we do? And so you'll say, oh, call Andrea, call Bill, you know, oh, I know property managers that had that situation. I'll put you in touch with them. And so, you know, there's those things that really benefit. And so if you need that reference, let us know. Drop me an email or Anita an email. We'll send you out a copy of it.
We have it. Thank you so much. And I took 30 copies to a meeting once and was told, we don't need that. I've been on the board for 30 years.
Yeah.
We'll keep trying. We'll keep trying.
Well, valiant effort. Yeah. Bill, your turn. Or is that a clapping? Are you applauding?
No, you know, over the years you get into so many of these situations, and at the end of the day, the best resolve is to have a really strong leader, a really strong chair. The problem is when the chair is the person who's the problem. But other than that, I mean, you just have to keep your resolve and know and understand what's right. I have one corporation in particular that had two of those people who didn't, and I'm one to speak, two of those people who don't follow the rules. But I mean, the rules of procedure at a board meeting and protocol at a board meeting and respect for everybody is so important. And when you have these people who weren't there, it makes meetings difficult. So you need somebody to be able to bring up the code of ethics every time when it's breached. And I've been at a meeting where I could have brought it up 10 times, and it's so it is difficult, but you just have to have resolve to work through, because you know that you're there for the right reason. And so that's all I would say to that. But the code of ethics, when you need it, you need it. Get it in place. After the AGM, when a new board starts, the very first thing you do is set it in front of them and don't start the meeting till they're all signed. And you take them back, and then you can show, hey, you signed this. You said you were going to. It is an effective document.
Mm-hmm. Carl, Carl, I see you're still here with us. So you've been quiet. Is there anything you want to add or any questions you'd like? I think you've got on mute. Oh, there you are. You're unmuted. Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, all right. Okay, well, if you want to, you could use the comment bar at the bottom, Carl, if you wanted to type under the chat, you could type something. Well, I guess in closing, I don't know, it sounds like we've kind of come to our end of a discussion, but unfortunately, small group, we got our business done we needed to get done within our bylaw, and so I thank you all for that. If you have any questions, and Elizabeth is touch base, she would like people to give some thought to if there's anything that you'd like to share on social media about our meeting tonight or our discussion, to send her a note, or if there's a graphic or some reference that you'd like to share, to send it out to her and she will tweet it out. These young people in their fandangle things, I haven't quite got the hang of that, but I think we're slowly getting the hang of the Zoom. So if there's no other questions or comments, I think we can bring our meeting to a close. Yeah, I think I'm seeing some thumbs up out there. So excellent. Well, thanks everyone for attending. I thank the panelists, and you know, again, small meeting, but you know what? I think we got accomplished what we need to accomplish, and I learned a few things tonight, so I thank you for that. Excellent. Well, everyone, thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you out. We're going to have another meeting in a few months. Tricia Size has offered to present some insurance topics, and so we're organizing that, and between Dustin and Anita, myself, we'll get something out to you shortly. So stay tuned. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye
now.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Thanks.
Anita, you going to stay on for a minute?